Hey everyone, if you're a fan of the show, please head over to mikeyop.com and click the subscribe button. It's the best way to support us, and it's free. That's MIKEYOPP.com. Thanks!
Hi, I'm Mike Oppenheim, and you are listening to Coffin Talk, Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. And this week, coming to us from Oregon, is James Hodge-Green. James, among many things, is an entrepreneur and a basketball star. We're going to get into the many nuances of his life and his opinions. So before we can do that, let's just say hello. How are you, James?
Hey, I'm living the dream. How you doing today?
I'm doing really good. We're recording this on a Sunday. It's a little warmer than normal out here in Arizona. And as I mentioned before the call briefly, your mom is one of my all-time best friends and favorite people. So it's a total pleasure to interview you today. And thank you.
Yeah, no, it's super amazing to be on the show. I'm glad that we could set this all up. I was really excited.
Very cool. And our main question that we always ask people is just if you can briefly let our audience know, how old are you, where did you grow up, and what generation, if any, do you feel you belong to?
Okay, so James Hodge-Green, I am 20 years old, and I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and the generation I think I belong to, what's the generation after millennial? I always forget them.
They call you Gen Z. It's up to you if you want to be it.
Gen Z? Yeah, I guess I'll claim Gen Z. We'll go with Gen Z for sure.
That's cool. And before we get into like the nitty gritty of like death and the meaning of life and all that, I just wanted to like paint a quick picture of like your many successful and dynamic sides, because it's not that it's that rare, but it's not a common stereotype of an athlete to be as like I don't know, you're a life coach, you're a mentality coach, you're an author, you're an optimistic problem solver by your own words. And I mean, you have a lot of things going around that aren't just related to basketball. But I am curious, like, to what extent do you love basketball? Do you play basketball? Or are you still involved with basketball?
Yeah, so right now I'm still a collegiate student athlete. But as of recently, I've decided this would be my last year playing competitively, just because all of my entrepreneurial ventures are really going super well. So in terms of basketball, this is my last year playing, so I'm just really enjoying the team feel and really getting all of those last memories in until I go full entrepreneur mode.
That's really cool, and that's an exciting time in life. Yeah, and not to sound condescending, it's the opposite, but I completely remember when I was 20 as like a very, very pivotal year in my life. That's cool, and it's also hard to break from goals from your youth as you get other goals and want to switch. So like, for example, I used to play music and then I went into writing. So I'm sure it'll work out. And just for the audience listening at home, yes, I've seen him play. Yes, he's incredibly awesome and very talented. And he did make it pretty damn far. And I'm sure if you wanted to, you still have room to make it. But let's switch to what you are going to make it in and are making it in, which is your entrepreneurial side. So you started the Millionaire Mac Club. Why don't you just briefly explain what that is, how you started it, and why you started it?
Okay. Yeah. So the Millionaire Mac Club, we believe millionaires defined by the mindset, not monetary status. And I started my company. It's almost been a year. It's a year in February. And the reason being, I've always grown up entrepreneur spirit, taking bags of chips to grade school, selling those, reselling sneakers. Always had the entrepreneur spirit, which was awesome. But last year when I was 19, and COVID was very prominent. During lockdown, I just was playing video games, wasn't really doing anything really truly purposeful. So I decided, I was like, wow, like I have all of this potential. I have all these skills. Why am I just playing a video game that I'm not even going to remember any of the milestones? So then that's when I went and started researching how to become wealthy. Originally, it was a really money hungry ambition to start, but then I really started finding my purpose through it. And I started realizing how good of, not to toot my own horn, but I always have given pretty good advice. So what I thought I would do is start like a business incubator where I could help people launch their companies from the ground up. And I realized I hadn't had a fully successful 6-figure, 7-figure company. So I was like, okay, well, until I develop that skill, let's do something else. And that's when I dove into making self-improvement content. And it really evolved very fastly, getting some thousands of followers on social media through my self-improvement content. Just recently finished my ebook. And like you mentioned earlier, I also do self-discipline and mentality coaching with one of my best friends. So the venture has been awesome just in terms of finding my purpose and really being able to turn a passion project into how I pay my bills.
That's so damn cool. And I have so many like individual threads from that statement that I want to unravel. So I'm going to start with the first one that really struck me, which is discipline is like a word that some people embrace and some people are utterly repelled by. Personally, I love it, and I think it's the most important quality in life. So when you start teaching people self-discipline, which is obviously just like a different way of saying it, or a sub-genre at the very least, what's like your first approach? Do you like assess someone's ability to discipline themselves, or like can you walk us through that word and how you use it?
Yeah. So the first thing I always do before we even get into the actual disciplines that a client or anybody would need, I'm really big on your vision, because you're not going to stay consistent. You're not going to stay disciplined. You're not going to stay hungry if you don't know where you're going, right? So if you don't have a goal or a vision for yourself, then it's very hard to wake up 2 hours before everybody else typically wakes up, going to bed 2 hours later than everybody goes to bed, making your bed every single day. So the first step is always asking them what's their vision. If money wasn't an object, what would you be doing with your life? And then from there, we reverse engineer. Okay, let's just use somebody that wants to be a millionaire, for example. Okay, you want to be a millionaire in the pet industry. Okay, let's dive in. Let's find some people that already did it, and let's decipher what habits they have, and let's see how quickly we can turn you into that type of person who has habits of making their bed every day, drinking their water every day, cutting out carbs, whatever niche you're in, or whatever type of person you want to be. How can we duplicate somebody else's success? Because there's nothing new under the sun. So I always ask them, what's your vision? Who's done it at the scale you want to do it, and what are they doing on a day-to-day? And then from there, we take small action steps to incorporate those habits.
Wow, that was awesome. And if anyone in my audience is questioning whether he's an optimistic problem solver, I believe they're not questioning that anymore. So I want to jump to like the main question we ask, which is, what do you think happens when you die? But I have a feeling I want to ask like 2 more questions before we get there, because what you're talking about is so like interesting to me, and I think it's more interesting to hear it now and then get into like the rest. First of all, I just want to say it sounds sort of like pleasantly ironic that if your goal is to make money, you state that that's your goal, but then you go through the process of if money were no object. And so I love that like your initial goal was that, and then you discovered this passion. So I'm seeing like a huge connection here between, it's not that money is good or bad or who even cares about money. It's that money will follow the passion. Am I missing something, or does that sound pretty accurate?
No, that's 100% accurate, because, ultimately you could be making tens and thousands of dollars monthly, but if you're waking up dreading going to work, or you're not having a relationship with your kids or with your spouse, then what is it for? And I actually had a aha moment like that recently, where I was doing 14, 16-hour days on my company, saying that I'm grinding to, patch family ties and fix things with my family. But then I realized, okay, I don't need $1 million to call my mom every day. I don't need $1 million to call my sisters every day. Like, a phone call, other than the phone bill, my phone calls are free. So what can you do? What can you do now that will bring you a good feeling? Like a little quote that I thought of yesterday. Well, half of it's mine. I said, life is a feeling process, so don't do things that don't make you feel good. And that's really my biggest thing, is because you could have $5 to your name, but if you have eternal happiness, then the universe, God, whoever you believe in is going to work out that tough time.
That's awesome. And I guess I have to now, like, since you brought up the universal thing that you do or do not believe in. So what exactly do you believe? And before you answer that much more specific question, I want to know just about death. What do you think happens when you die? And I always clarify, I don't mean when a person dies. I mean specifically, what do you envision will happen to you yourself when you die?
This is, I was excited to answer this question just because I ponder on this a lot. I really do. My roommate and I, we talk about different death theories all the time. So let's see, which one am I believing right now? Okay, so I think when you die or when I die, I believe it's kind of like a purpose system. It's kind of like a purpose system. So you're sent here to Earth in your human form by the universe. And so this will answer your first question. So I believe the universe is God. So whenever I think of God, I don't think of God in a human form that's at the white gates, with Jesus by his side, letting you through the heaven gates, saying you either went to heaven or hell. So I believe the universe is everything. And then us as humans, we're a part of the universe. We're a part of everything. Therefore, since we're a part of everything, we are the universe. So I think we have God or the universe within each and every one of us. And that's why we can manifest and create our realities, because we are the divine power. So I think when you are split into your little individualized body and you're to the earth, you're sent here with a purpose, because the universe, if you're eternal and you're everything, then it's hard, or it's not hard, it's impossible to interact with anything else if you are everything. So I think that's why he made humans, to interact with each other so he can experience all of his greatness, all of his divine, all of his infinite abundance in different ways. So I believe, like, humans, we're all just a reflection of each other. And like, typically things that you like in other people, you probably have those qualities. Things that you hate in other people, you probably have those qualities. So back to the death thing. So I believe we're sent here with a purpose and an experience that we're supposed to live out, given to the highest power, given to us from the highest power. And from there, I think if you go through your day to day, you get divine messages, you get into your intuition messages. And if it's up to you to tap into source and get familiar with the voice, whatever that voice or however you decipher your messages, it's on you to get close with the ultimate power, so then you can therefore live out your full purpose. And I think, life is like a scoring system, and ultimately I don't believe there's like heaven or hell, but I think you live through heaven and hell on earth. So that's like your mental state. So when you're depressed, you're living hell on earth. When you're ultimately super happy, super poised, super content, that's heaven on earth. And so I think we go through our lives going through different emotions, trying to find that contentment and stillness. And after we leave our body, or after I'll leave my body, I believe if you ultimately achieve your full purpose, then you'll evolve into a higher life form and a more simpler life form. Because I think on earth we have not too complex of a lifestyle, but there's so many variables, so much emotional turmoil, that it is ultimately a complex lifestyle. So I think ultimately if you achieve your purpose here, then you'll evolve to, the only way I can really envision it is like you'll just evolve into a higher being. And I don't think we'll have like a body form, but we'll just be more like light. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. That was awesome. That was great. How often do you hear from people like, wait, you're only 20? Because that was profound and very, very it was complicated, but you explained it really well, so it doesn't sound as complicated. Wow. That's cool. And it's funny because I was going to actually ask you later, not as a softball question, but I was going to ask you how you handle the whole, like, how can you tell me how to help myself when you're so young? Because I'm sure that comes with your occupation. But I'm pretty sure answers like that will shut someone up.
Thank you.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Thank you.
And so actually the only difficult question I can think to ask about that, not because I'm trying to like catch your philosophy, but I want to like really make sure I can test all the like points of it, would be, so let's say person A is super depressed because they're in their own hell on earth, and then person B is super, super just pumped, ecstatic, full of the joie de vivre and like, you know, just living on level 11. What happens if some country just like sets up a nuclear holocaust situation and everyone perishes at the same time? Does that even matter?
Yeah. So ultimately, I feel like your emotions, they're influenced by your circumstances, but they're not defined by your circumstances, or that's not the ultimate decision. I do feel like obviously with like a Holocaust situation, it would be extreme for somebody to still be ecstatic, but I don't think it'd be far-fetched, because there's definitely those people that understand, and even if you understand but have full control of like, okay, I know this situation is horrible, I know my fate is coming, but I'm still going to hold high spirits. I do think there are people out there like that, and will keep that positive spirit, no doubt, in a situation like that. And I ultimately think, I believe that like every situation you end up in I don't believe in coincidences. I think you somehow attracted that into your life. And this is where like my philosophy gets kind of like slippery and kind of confusing, because so you know how I said after you die, if you achieved your purpose here, then you get to move on to the higher life form. And I also think it's like there's like eternal karma. So let's say, I don't know if I believe in past lives or not, but I kind of do. So let's say in your past life, you didn't serve purpose, or you weren't in divine order, then I feel like that's where you end up getting rebirthed into a less desirable situation, or maybe you're born into a less desirable situation because you have something to learn from there, right? So ultimately, it's so tough to tell. It's so tough to tell, like, what in those types of situations. I do feel, this may sound insensitive, but I do feel like whoever's in that situation somehow, some way attracted that to them.
Yeah, no, and sure, that might insult some people. As a matter of fact, I think people who suffer from depression might even be insulted by the idea that that's their own hell on earth, because there's like many different theories on depression, and some people say it's chemical, you can't help it, and others say even if it's chemical, you still can help it. And again, I'm not going to get into that because that's not my interest on this podcast, but I'm giving you space to be right and wrong and all that, because that's the whole point of this podcast. But it doesn't take away from what I think you're really setting up, which is a system that rewards those who believe in it, which is, to me, very interesting, because that's a very good way to live your life. So I am curious. I'm not young anymore. I'm 40, and I hang out with people mostly my own age, so I don't hear a lot of like optimism the way I used to. And if anyone that I'm hearing it from is saying it, it's usually me, which can be embarrassing because I'm like a very optimistic person. So I am curious, like, are people in your age bracket and the people you interact with COVID, with like the elections, and I'm talking about like both of them, like the 16 and the 20, and just all the whole shit that's going on right now in the universe, are they like optimistic still? Do they believe like in the future, or are you hearing like negativity?
Well, first I want to say 40 is still young in my opinion. I don't know if I'm crazy or if like I'll change my mind when I get there, but I feel like that's still young.
Next time you're here, come play basketball with me, and you'll see what 40 looks like. But yeah, no, seriously.
In terms of optimism with people that I associate with, I like to keep my crowd. I like to stay around optimistic people because I'm an extreme optimistic person. Like, I will hear anybody's theory out about life. I will contemplate if aliens are real. I will talk to you about anything because I really just like to gain perspective, because ultimately I think that's why we're here, is to just gain perspective. Um, so the people that I hang out with and associate myself with are extremely optimistic, and I really like the crowd that I'm around right now, just because uh we try not to be victims of our circumstances, because ultimately with the election you only get one vote, and yes, that's the president of your country, but the effects on your day to day are less than what we actually think, right? And in terms of the pandemic, the people that I hang around, like I said, we don't like to be victims of our circumstances, because I can wake up like, oh, I have to wear this mask when I leave the grocery store. It's like, yeah, you can, if you complain about it, you're still going to have to wear it. If you don't complain about it and just wear it, or just have your belief and keep it to yourself, then you're still going to have to wear it, which is fine. And ultimately, like, that rule isn't bending, but why are you allowing it to sway your emotions? Because if there's so many other factors that can truly be detrimental to your emotions, why are you allowing a little mask uh to mess up your emotions? Or why are you letting two guys that are running for president that ultimately don't have your best interest, like your personal best interest, whoever he's talking to, Jimmy, Steve, he doesn't know you personally. Why are you allowing that to ruin your day-to-day friendships, your day-to-day relationships with your mom, with your dad? And I think ultimately another really cool thing about the people that I hang out with is the extreme optimism allows us to eliminate those those uh controversial those controversial arguments that could be really, really deadly to friendships, just because we believe that the reason that there isn't why there's such a divide in the country is because people don't listen to what each other have to say. Because whether you're a Republican, Democrat, whatever you are, there's some truth in what you believe, and there's some false stuff in what you believe, no matter what. Like, there's duality to everything. So therefore, if you're not going to listen to the other side, you could be missing a totally different perspective that could be ultimately the missing piece that would make you 100% correct. So that's what I really like about the people that I'm hanging out with, is like, they didn't necessarily conform to what's going on, but realize, control what you can control, and then whatever you can't control, try to influence that. If you can't influence that and you still don't like what's going on, then remove yourself from the situation if possible.
Very cool, very cool. Most of your answer, I would have like paid someone your age to say, just so it would make me feel better. So that's very cool. And I think, I was joking around about being old. Like, obviously, I feel pretty young and I love life and I'm happy at all ages. But I do think there's a huge media-driven argument right now, and I don't think it's real, that people your age hate people like slightly older than me, basically your mom's age, and people their age hate you. And I'm in the middle. I like literally feel like a middle child here between like two generations. And again, I don't feel like people I meet your age are saying this, nor do the people I interact with on the other side say it, but the media keeps saying it. So I am curious, is social media toxic? Like, from your generational point of view, like, what's your relationship to social media right now?
Wow, that's a good question. My relationship with social media is interesting, because my whole business foundation is based off of social media. But the funny thing is I'm not a big social media consumer. So what I really try to do is, because yes, I do think social media is toxic, but what I try to do is just post and then get right off social media, just because the way the algorithms are set up and the way those platforms are set up is to get you to stay on that app as long as you can and get you going through different emotional cycles. And that's really why I started creating my content, just because, you know, I know most people's feeds are filled up with fight videos, cats falling off 40 feet, Trump and pandemic posts. Like, all of it is just so, most of it, I won't say all of it, most of it is just so negative. And, you know, something that I feel like is almost inevitable is you are what you think, right? You are what you're feeding yourself. You are your mental diet. So a lot of people are unconscious of what they're consuming mentally, and they're wondering why depression rates are the highest that they've been, anxiety rates are the highest that they've ever been, because once you get on those apps, you just become so unconscious of what's going on, unconscious of your time, unconscious of what's really real, unconscious of what data is real, unconscious of who you are, because you're constantly comparing to Kylie Jenner, to Justin Bieber. You're constantly comparing your life to somebody else's picture perfect profile. So ultimately, I do think social media is toxic for the most part, but if you use it correctly, then it can really be a benefit to you, because with the internet, we get instant information, and ultimately that's what helps us evolve as humans, is gaining more information, gaining more perspective. So if you figure out a way to set up your algorithm and, you know, cut out the bikini models, cut out the pictures of people smoking and drinking, and you really fill your feed up with, you know, daily positive quotes, videos of people saying you can do it, videos of people in your niche doing what you want to do, so you get inspired. And, you know, if you are going to compare yourself to somebody, then have it be a comparison of somebody doing something great. Don't have it be you're comparing yourself peer to peer, and the peer that you're comparing yourself to isn't even doing what you want to do. Like, compare yourself to a millionaire, to a billionaire, compare yourself to Jeff Bezos, to, you know, somebody that's doing something inevitably impactful. Why are you comparing yourself to Sally Mae down the road that is ultimately not happy with where she's at, but she's making it seem that way on Instagram? So yeah, I do think social media is toxic.
Cool. Very good answer, and very intriguing to think about, because I'm in the same dilemma. I obviously want this podcast to succeed. I'm also a writer. I'm told the only way to get attention is on social media, and so I try to play the game, but I also see everything you're talking about, and kind of, I dislike would be the nicest way to say it. So we are running out of time. I'm going to give you, after this next question, the floor to just kind of give your peace of mind to everyone, which I can't wait for. But before that, I do have a special request, and my wife's going to kill me. She's our producer, and she listens to every episode. She's listening now. And she has trouble waking up in the morning. That's her main problem. Once she's up, she's a go-getter. She works very hard. So you can speak indirectly to her or directly. It's up to you. But what would be your advice for people listening? Because I think it's about 50-50. I think 50% of us jump out of bed and the other 50 don't. What's your advice to that particular problem?
Yeah. My advice is the morning starts the night before. So it's really, how do you go to bed? Because if you're going to bed, it's not good for your mind to be on your devices 30 minutes before bed, just because your mind is processing so much. Whether you think like, oh, my way to wind down is watching a Netflix show. It's like, yeah, you think that's pretty casual, but your mind is really processing so much. So my advice to that is set routines, set morning routines and night routines. And it doesn't have to be a complex one that takes like an hour and a half. Literally just have something for yourself that's 15 minutes before you go to bed and 15 minutes when you wake up, right? So whether that's sit in silence for 5 minutes, and then sit in silence for 5 minutes, then stretch for 5 minutes, and then journal for 5 minutes. So you really want to have basically the framework that I would suggest is have some silent time, have some time where you can pour out your emotional baggage from the day, and then have some time to like lightly move your body or take care of your body. So, maybe you don't want to stretch, maybe you do some mobility, some yoga, maybe you do a few push-ups, or you drink a cup of water, whatever works for you, but have something for your body, mind, and spirit right before you go to bed. And then the same thing when you wake up, because, alongside with the natural wake up time, because we're creatures of habit. So you'll have the wake up time instilled in you, and then you'll also have these little habits that you're starting your day off with small wins, like making your bed every single morning. That's the smallest win in the book, but I promise it helps so much. But yeah, if you're having trouble going to bed, cut off your phone sooner, move your body a little bit, and pour out your emotional baggage.
That was awesome. And again, I want to reiterate, I cannot believe you're only 20 years old. That was like very sage-like advice. So with that said, we are at the end of the interview, and I always give my guests, it's my favorite part, I just give you the floor. A lot of people listen to this, and they're going to take to heart what you say. So you're optimistic, you're wise, you've given tons and tons of awesome answers to some interesting questions. What else do you have to say?
Perfect. Thank you. Real quick, something that you addressed earlier, I wanted to touch on. When you're like, well, what do you do when people will be like, wow, you're only 20, or how are you going to help me if you're only 20? And ultimately, what I'll always say is, like, I'm not teaching or saying anything profound or anything unheard of. I'm just expressing simple truths. That's really my biggest thing, is simple truths. Like, what are the little things that we know we should be doing every single day? We know we should be doing. Everyone should be doing these things, but we don't, because we either overlook them or we forget them. That's exactly what I teach. So my last little piece is, ultimately, wherever you are in life, whether you're happy, unhappy, whether you're lost, you're fully in purpose, you're an entrepreneur, you're a soccer mom, whatever you're doing, my challenge to you is to ask yourself, where am I? Where do I want to be? And what do I got to do to get there? Whether you're on top of the world or whether you're at the bottom of the world, I want you to ask yourself those three questions. Where am I? Where do I want to be? And how do I get there? And ultimately, a metaphor that I've really been diving into a lot is the rainbow and pot of gold. So when you're going through that process of finding out where you are, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there, remember the rainbow, right? We always see the rainbow and we think of the pot of gold at the end, but you don't see the pot of gold. You don't see the pot of gold from the distance. You see the rainbow, and the rainbow, it resembles the process. And there's so many more colors in the rainbow than there is in the pot of gold, because the pot of gold is ultimately just one color and one thing. So what I'm saying is, fall in love with the process, fall in love with the ups and downs, fall in love with the gray skies behind the rainbows, and find the good and the bad through all things. And, like I said, there's more colors in the rainbow. So there's way more to appreciate and way more to evaluate than how we typically surface level evaluate things. So my challenge is for us to dive into our situations a little deeper than we typically do, gain a little more perspective than you typically do, react to something a little more different than you typically do. That's my challenge for whoever's listening. And ultimately, if you want some help with your self-discipline, or if you need help finding your purpose, you can definitely reach out to me. I think Mike's going to put my links, but you can reach out to me and we can have a one-on-one session where I can just see how I can help you, and then I can show you my different packages. You can join my mastermind, or we can just chop it up and be friends. So my biggest thing is work every single day to become who you want to be, and understand that you have everything within you to do whatever you want to do.
That was so damn cool. Thank you, James Hodge-Green, for helping us put another nail in the coffin. As he mentioned, of course, if you look in the notes, there will be links to everything about him and how to find him. And I openly and avidly encourage you to do so. I feel motivated from today's talk, and I'm just really happy that I got a chance to connect with you. And again, thank you so much, and I really, truly mean this. Thank you for caring about other people and caring about our world. It matters more than anything, in my opinion, and we're all capable of helping each other, and you're doing a great job, James. So thank you. And to everyone at home, again, if you want to help out the podcast, the number one thing you can do is subscribe, and the number two thing you can do is to rate us on whatever app you listen to us. Other than that, thank you for listening either way. We love you and appreciate you, and my name is Mike Oppenheim. You have been listening to Coffin Talk, and we will see you soon.